I've seen all these capable leaders come in and fail. And it wasn't because they weren't capable. It wasn't because they weren't good, but because they were in the wrong situation. And it's really hard. Maybe it's the wrong board, the wrong culture, wrong expectations. They'll beat you every time.
Today, we're talking about how senior leaders really get hired. Here's the part that most people don't realize. By the time a role is officially posted, if it's posted at all, the conversation may have already started months earlier. Search firms are already building lists, boards are already asking who they trust, and people are already being talked about in rooms they don't even know they're in. The real question is, am I known, trusted, and championed for the kinds of roles I want? My guests today are Neill Marshall and Kurt Mosley, two executive search leaders with HealthSearch partners. They have decades of experience with hospital associations, health systems, and physician organizations. They understand what actually happens behind the scenes when organizations are looking for senior leaders. We talk about what makes a candidate championed, how reputations are built long before the opportunity opens, and what boards are really looking for beyond the resume. We also get into the first 90 days of a new executive role. You'll learn why it's important to build trust, understand the culture, avoid moving too fast, and create early wins that actually matter. If you're a senior leader, an aspiring executive, or someone thinking seriously about your next move, this conversation will help you think differently about reputation, relationships, and the long game. Let's get into it. Neill and Kurt, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
Thanks, Marlo. Yep, we're happy to be here.
So happy to have you guys here. So, Neill, I'm going to start with you because I read that you placed over 600 senior executives over the nearly 3 decades that you've been doing this. And most executives think that search starts when the job is posted. But where does it actually start? And what are most candidates completely blind to?
Yeah, it starts way before the job is posted. I mean, by the time a role is public, the board and the search firm have already kind of have a real clear picture of what they're looking for. And most leaders are blind to the fact that their reputation is built years in advance, based on what they've done, who they've worked with, what others are saying about them, how they've handled pressure, and whether they've delivered.
So that starts really early in your career. It's not like all of a sudden I've hit the senior levels and I have to start developing this.
No, it's as I tell people, you need to, your career is not a 5-year jaunt. It's a 50 today. It can be a 50-year jaunt, and that's the way you need to look at it.
Really good information, especially for those early career employees who don't realize that very first job can matter. So, Kurt, you also have spent 31 years building relationships with hospital associations and health systems and physician organizations across the country. So, when search firms and boards huddle before they do that search, what's the conversation really about behind the scenes?
Well, we usually have a preemptive meeting. I think that's what you're referencing. And it's really about risk. It's not resumes. Boards are asking, when they confide in us, they say, who can we trust? Who won't disrupt our culture? Who can we confidently stand behind? It's usually a reputation discussion, not a qualification discussion, like who we can't accept. And most importantly, they may be talking about internal candidates too, that are very valuable to their organization, but they're not ready for this position. So they're asking us in a lot of cases to say, should we interview everybody so they get a fair chance? We don't want to stifle their careers here. We look forward to them in the future, but they may not be ready for this position. So these are all these things that happen before anybody signs a contract and even starts to work on the search process.
When you start a search and you're out there looking for someone, do you have a database of people that you start with, or do you actually go out and source candidates and source executives?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, it's we do both, but frankly, at the highest levels, we also have a mental short list. These are every search I start, I have 10 people in mind that I'm going to want to pitch. Okay. And these are people that that I have a history with, that I've built a relationship with. They can be candidates, they can be clients, but we built a relationship over time. And that's not the only people, obviously, but that's certainly the first folks that are going to rise to the top.
How do I build a relationship with you? How do leaders do that if they're looking for that next opportunity? They can't just call you up and go, "Hey Kurt, hey Neill," right? And get you on the phone. So how do I do that?
It's, you know what, it is really straightforward. Okay. But most people don't do it well. You build a relationship with a handful of search consultants that specialize in your area. Who are they? Well, they're the ones that are calling. And if they're not calling, then you talk to your boss or your boss's boss or peers and find out who the people are. Then build a relationship. Reach out when you don't need something. Be visible, be responsive to us, and be consistent over time. Be of value to us so that we can be of value to you.
So is it a good idea, maybe I'm not looking for something right now, but I see that you've posted something that maybe I would be valuable for, and I don't want that job. But if I email you and say, "Hey, Neill, I just want to let you know, I'm not looking right now. I'm somebody who you might want to be in touch with in the future, but here are 4 names of people who might be of interest to you." Is that helping you?
Yeah, absolutely. It is one way to start that dialogue going, because what you're really trying for is that when we have something that's that's going to fit you, you want us calling you. And that's one way to get on the radar screen. I'll tell you another. And this is had a guy who was a candidate, and then he called me and he wanted me to help him find somebody for him. Right. Frankly, I saw him as a B- candidate at the time,
Oh.
but
Mm-hmm.
during the work that I did, I really came to respect. We built a lot of rapport, and I really came to respect, and I saw how people in the organization viewed him. And he went from a B- to an A or an A+ candidate while we were working together.
So it is that time that it takes. And Kurt, there is a difference though between a candidate that, a search firm presents and one that they actually champion, right? Really are
Right.
behind them to get them in that door for that job. So what's going to make a search consultant go to bat for me, for the candidate, who submitted their resume and has been talking to you and you're talking to 12 other people? How do you do that? Or how do I make you want to champion me and advocate for me?
That's a good question. And there's always ones, and it's not a favorite situation. I want to make sure I represent that, but it's somebody that you really, as you said, Marlo, and quite eloquently champion that person. But I advocate for candidates who are consistent, clear, and make the process easy for me. Make sure that they read the prospectus about the job. They tell me why they want the job. They tell me what the future holds for them in this job. If there's friction or uncertainty, we step back. We say, okay. Or, for example, if someone's known to kick tires, always pulls out at the end, we're not going to put our reputation on the line for that person because it's our reputation. We're looking for somebody that we also can build a long-term relationship with, even if it's not for this opportunity. We want to make sure that we place them when we can place them again, maybe 5-6 years down the road, and not just to be a part of that transaction to get that job filled. That's not our goal.
So you said friction. So I have to ask, what are those specific behaviors and reputational signals that give you pause during the interview process? Because I'm sure everybody would like to know not to do them.
Well, I think friction is maybe talking down to a recruiter. In a lot of cases, nobody. I'm the one that's representing this position, and hopefully, and I know I say hopefully, I'm going to know more about this position than they are. But when they act like they know what the job entails, and then friction from the standpoint of, did you read what the job description was about? How does it apply? And they have it pre-prepared, especially when they talk to me initially. And you're talking about being championing somebody, I know they may not be interested. They may just be, engaging me in a conversation, or they may just be kicking the tires, which I talked about earlier.
Is there anything else that might unintentionally disqualify them? Maybe not in the interview, but even before the formal process starts, like something that nobody ever tells them?
A lot of times we hear this, healthcare has more acronyms than any industry in America. But using jargon, like I had a gentleman last week use bifurcated 3 or 4 times. Another one was using, granular a lot. And I'm just like, okay, we understand it, but let's get down to the lowest common denominator. And we try to prep them to make sure that they're on point and they're clear and they're consistent in their communication, not only with me, but when they get in front of the search committee, if there is one.
So I've always told my leaders who are looking for jobs that they have to be able to answer a question under 2 minutes, because you will lose interest in what they're saying because they become long-winded or they start going going into tangents. Is that true? Am I giving them a good piece of advice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, usually if a CEO candidate is first round, typically will be with a search committee, right? And we tell them, look, you're probably going to be asked, tell us a little about yourself, right? Needs to be 4 minutes, not a second longer. Okay. You need to practice what you're going to say. Let's practice it. And you need to be very clear, very clear. And yes, that you go longer than 2 minutes and you've lost people.
Do you think people think they're clear, but they're not clear? That's what I have found. You're nodding.
A lot of times that's the case. And just what you said, but I know I've had some candidates that are very qualified, but they tend to be long-winded. And when I first counsel them, I'll talk to them and say, get it down to 30 seconds. They go, how can I do that? I want to tell them, but get it down to 30 seconds and then we'll add another minute and see how that goes. So go to the lowest common denominator so they're not putting people to sleep, as you said. So,
and another way to do it is to answer it short in the short version and then ask, would you like more detail? If they want more detail, then you can give them a little more detail. The key is a little more detail.
I love that. I love that idea because then, they want to tell you everything, but the problem is nobody wants to hear everything and it may not be valuable to them. You have to think about who you're speaking to. So if a senior leader wants to influence what's being said about them in the rooms that they're not in, let's say the boards, the search firms, the peer networks, what should they be doing right now before the next opportunity exists?
Yeah. Well, a lot of what we've already talked about, right? I mean, building the relationships, but also, being visible. Don't and I know you're a big proponent of visibility, but you've got to be visible, okay? And the more visible you are, the better. Work at getting awards, okay? Listen, if you're the CEO of an organization and you get an award, the organization is getting that award too, right?
Right.
So it really is part. And the more heralded a CEO is, the more heralded the organization is. But be visible, and really more than anything, way back when you could stub your toe and it appeared in your local paper and
Right.
it went away. It's not the case anymore.
So you have to show up on LinkedIn because this is one thing I tell my executives every single time. You must be posting 3 times a week thought leadership, 3 times a week. Thought leadership, either about being a leader, about your industry, about a new breakthrough, about something you found interesting in your take on it, different take on it. They won't do it. They're so scared to post on LinkedIn or to be out there. And I cannot emphasize enough to them that they have to be doing this. And is that true? Is that how you find people?
It's certainly one of the ways. And they will stay top of mind if they're doing good things on LinkedIn. I'm not sure that you need to be taking a picture, with every employee of your organization. But if you've got if you want to tout somebody as an employee of the month, then yeah, appear with them. Yes, thought leadership, talking about topics that are important. Yeah, and today, and as a leader in the organization, you don't have to do all that yourself. You have a marketing department. Get with them. And there is nothing wrong with the CEO having their marketing department help them raise their profile, because raising their profile helps them. I'll tell you a quick story about that. And it's probably 15 years ago. A CEO of a small hospital in Florida, I'm not going to say which one, but he sent out an email. He said he was starting a blog, right? And I'm like, listen, Bill, I don't want to hear about where you went on vacation, what you're eating for dinner and all of that. But he did it the right way. He did, and it was all on thought leadership and healthcare and all of that. And he parlayed that into moving from this small, sleepy little hospital to one of the larger hospitals in the state, a very well respected. And today, after doing this, and listen, I have a Google alert on him.
Mhm. Yeah.
I get something on him every single day.
Wow.
Not just him writing it, but awards for the organization, new things that they're doing. And today, he's in a conversation in every boardroom in the country at a higher level, meaning if I'm doing a search for a major organization, he's on my short list every time. I don't know if he's going to look. He might end up staying where he is, but he's on that short list.
And that is really strategic, right? That was smart. It was strategic. And you have to be strategic about it so that you don't look like you're actually campaigning for the next job. So
right.
Besides a blog, right? How do you do it without coming across as self-promotional? Because, in med tech and in healthcare, especially, which is your space, it's all about the patient, right? In healthcare. So it can't come across as it's about me.
Right.
Marlo, when you were talking about how visibility, I'm a national speaker and I attend a lot of those state hospital associations. I have those relationships with, but I'm always interested in the CEOs, COOs, CFOs, CNOs that are speaking at those conferences. And I go attend their speeches also, number one, to learn, because they're out there in the field doing what they're supposed to do and telling you about what's successful, what doesn't work for them. Number two, their exposure. I mean, they're getting so much exposure because people say, saw so-and-so speak at the Georgia Hospital Association Rural Conference last week. Really impressive. And that travels like light speed. So being able to stand up and speak on a subject that you're directing or supervising is very important to get your name out there in the marketplace.
I think it's critical, actually, for all executives, SVP and above, not just CEOs, but like SVPs
Right.
and above. They need to be either writing articles, posting, writing that blog, writing the newsletter, right? Something that is visible out there. So like you said, boardrooms are actually thinking about them. When boards already know who they want, or they know that name, right? What do they say to you when they call you?
Well, our job is to put together a group of candidates. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In healthcare, we don't go after one person. Okay.
Right.
What we're going to do is put up, we call it a slate, but a group of candidates. But we want in that group some of the high flyers. Absolutely. And so, and there'll be, I've had searches where the board said, look, we want you to go after this person, this person, this person, this person. Say, we absolutely will. Now, we're also going to enlarge it. We're going to go national, and we're going to find people that will compete with that group. But yeah, we've had situations where they've given us a short list up front of people that are very well known in their state, typically, that they've run across.
So once they land, so I'm an executive and you've now helped me get that job. thank you to you, right? I'm now in the job, whether I'm an SVP, an EVP, I'm a, CTO, CMO, in the C-suite, I'm a CEO. There's a first 90 days in a role. And I have read the book, The First 90 Days. I don't subscribe to it because I think it scares you out of your whiz. You better make a mark right away. And I think it really puts people in this panic, right? But you've seen executives make that transition. So what is the biggest mistake that you think leaders make before they even walk in the door on day one?
That's a great question, Marlo. I think I always like to quote John Wooden. He's a basketball coach. I think he had 7 straight NCAA championships, but he wrote a book called Be Quick, But Don't Hurry. And what you've said, let me explain the quote a little bit better. It's, hurried leaders make rash decisions at the start. They rush in before they understand the situation. They try to correct the problem. They don't understand why the problem was actually created in the first place. Sometimes they misread culture, which we'll probably talk about more. But again, think before you act. But there is a lot of pressure, and a lot of times boards will say we want a symbolic act, which is really what our 90-day series is about. How do you get those symbolic acts in the first 90 days? And they want it to happen. But again, it's really good to pick something you can act on and you can be successful on. Don't shoot for the highest limb on the tree on the very first symbolic act you try with your new role.
I love the think before you act, but I almost feel like it's listen before you think before you act.
It is too. Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, one of our CEOs that was in our 90-day series, he said, I asked him, tactic, give me a tactic. And he said, my tactic is I interviewed all 242 of my leaders in the organization. Well, I said, okay. Not only that, but I went to them. I didn't ask them to come to my office. I went to their office. And even more importantly, what he said was, if we're successful in the first 90 days, what have we done? What have we accomplished? And then he took all of that, all 242, and bubbled up the 8 or 10 things that the organization viewed as were the most important things for them to do.
That's really an interesting way to go. I presume that was like a CEO or...
Yeah, he was CEO of
right?
Jay Robinson ran a region for Kaiser, and he had 242 leaders.
Wow. That's a lot of time as well, which a lot of people may not have that
all
time
90 days.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to take like every minute of all 90 days, right? But I love that, like you said, he bubbled up, like, what are we going to do? I'm presume he also did, how do we want it to feel? Because like you mentioned, Kurt, culture, huge deal, right? You're walking into a new culture. I know everybody thinks healthcare is all the same. It is not. Every company, and I've worked in healthcare, I've worked at Intuitive, it's a little bit different each place.
Sure. Yeah. And, culture is the multiplier. You can do 10 things great in your first 90 days. You do one thing wrong and that'll negate those 10 good things. The biggest mistake I think CEOs or all leaders do in relationship to culture, Marlo, I think it has to do with not understanding the culture first or how the culture developed before you try to change it. And again, when you're working with the board, understand what their interpretation of the culture is. You can move them, later down the road if you want to, after you establish credibility and after they trust you. But at that start, people are looking to you not to come in and change the culture, but to understand it and work within that culture until it sees fit you need to change it or you suggest to change it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it does take time and you have to work with what is. I think too often I hear leaders trying to, they're frustrated, they're irritated, they want their boss to do something better, they want it to be different, they want it to change immediately, they want a new org structure. But you have to live with what is in the moment when you walk in. Because I think they underestimate that walking in and making changes right away, you're not the hero, you're not wearing a cape, right? You're coming in, but you're here to listen and absorb before and then figure out what that change management looks like, I presume.
Yeah. I don't think they're expecting you to be a genius at the start, but they want to trust you. And that's, understanding the culture is part of that trust at the start.
Absolutely. So I know new leaders sometimes often underestimate the board relationship in those early days. Are there any specific behaviors that build or permanently damage the board trust in that critical 90-day window?
Yeah, I think there are communication, transparency. One I like that very few people do, but I suggest negotiate before you take the job. That's when you have the most power. Okay, so negotiate early wins. I had a CEO who knew, based on everything, that the nurses were underpaid by about 25%. And he didn't take the job until he negotiated with the board that they were going to be able to get the nursing salaries competitive. Okay,
Wow.
so negotiate a timeline. Say, listen, I'm not coming in to do strategic things the first 90 days. I want to focus on building trust before I do these major strategic initiatives. The last one, this can be a little hairy, but if everybody knows that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed, especially if it has a chance of being high risk for the CEO, do it before the CEO gets there.
Negotiate that happens before they arrive.
Exactly. Okay, so
Mm.
an example is you've got a CEO that's been shown the door, and she had two or three very strong allies in the organization, and everybody knows that those two or three have to go. Don't make the new CEO do it.
Ah, yes.
Have the interim or have it done beforehand. Again, if everybody's saying we know we're going to have a riff, don't make the new CEO do that first
Oh,
thing,
it's horrible.
right?
Horrible to do that, right? Horrible.
Negotiate that it gets done before they show up. So those are the things that build damages, surprises,
Yeah. Like, what would be a
violence.
surprise?
So,
Have you had a
so,
surprise?
so,
Like,
um, yeah, I mean, you see them. Most of them are going. Well, I had one where the new CEO found out about a Medicare issue that had gone on that literally had gone on for years and years and years. Okay.
mm,
Um, Now he did the exact opposite and immediately took it to the board. Now it was a surprise to the board, but it wasn't his surprise. It
got
was
it.
the former CEO's surprise. Too much silence, and the big one, overpromising. Uh, I'm like a lot of people. I'm a big proponent of underpromise and overdeliver.
Absolutely. Is there a formula for identifying and executing the right early win? Like, is there something that helps you build credibility or that trust we've been talking about without kind of overreaching or politicizing that new leader's presence?
I think finding something visible, um,
Mhm.
that's, very simple, meaningful, that's going to really top priority for everybody. And most importantly, fixable, Marlo, something you can fix. I mean, if you want to, you can't build a wall or a building in one day. So those small wins build credibility, just like Neill said. I remember one of the CEOs we worked with really wanted to talk about their behavior, and they all had their parking spots next to the hospital. And day one, he said, we're going to change this whole visibility. We're going to park in the back, and we're going to give those to the employee of the month or whatever we choose to give those parking spaces to. And from day one, basically, he was saying the employees are the reason we're here. It's not because of us. We work for them. So that was something he fixed right away. The board loved it. There was all kinds of kudos at day one. And those are little things that people go, that's kind of simple, but it's not really simple. And it's a nice way to look at things. But it was something. It was a small win. It built credibility, and it was fixable right away.
And it's super visible, right? If I'm an employee and all of a sudden I feel like the CEO who doesn't know my name because I'm 7 rungs down has my back, when I'm
Right.
pulling in at 3 or 4 in the morning or whatever I'm doing, like, wow, like that's super, like that already makes me feel good about
This
this new person coming in that I may not have an interaction with.
this CEO told his team, "Listen, we're no longer parking in executive parking. That's for our people.
Yeah.
We're parking at the very last lot And you know what? We're going to use that time as we're walking in every morning to greet our employees.
I love that. Yeah. So easy.
And
So simple.
and you're not standing up in front of your employees and telling them that they're important. You are showing them that they're important.
Yeah.
Because in today's healthcare environment, he who retains and attracts their employees, they're going to win.
What's the one thing that you wish that you could tell every senior executive candidate out there, but you wish you could tell them, but you never do because it's just too blunt or uncomfortable for you?
I think the one thing I wish I could tell every executive is that the environment matters more than you think. The environment you're going into. I've seen all these capable leaders come in and fail. And it wasn't because they weren't capable. It wasn't because they weren't good, but because they were in the wrong situation. And it's really hard. It's like telling somebody they're in a bad relationship with another person. That's really hard to do, even if they're your best friend. But, maybe it's the wrong board, the wrong culture, wrong expectations. They'll beat you every time. So make sure you fit the role. The role fits you as much as you fit the role.
That is so critical, Kurt. I think too often, so many people want to get out of a bad situation, so they're running from something, and they don't realize that they need to be running to the thing that still aligns with their values and aligns with their goals and aligns with, the environment that's going to be best for them. I think that's so beyond critical. For executives listening right now who feel stuck, they're talented, they're experienced, they're doing great work, but they're not getting called for those bigger roles. What's your honest diagnosis?
Sometimes absence does make the heart grow fonder. You might need to leave, the situation if you're stuck in to move up. We had a situation where this one candidate we worked with left the opportunity because he was stuck in that and went to another opportunity that fit better. And then when the CEO left, they asked him to come back and take that role in the hospital where he was previously at. But again, you might need to leave in order to move up, or you may need to take a step back. I mean, that's another thing is a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to take a step back for anything. But in a lot of cases, the smart career move is to do that so you can reposition yourself. I mean, you get visible. Taking a step back into a larger organization in a lot of ways is a big plus. And a lot of people look at it, I'm not going to take a step back. But when you look at it and you add it up on a Ben Franklin T scale, it may be the best thing for you.
Yeah, and you've both seen that. You've seen executives take calculated risks and make lateral moves and do industry pivots and place bets on those startups that they joined. When does that bold move actually pay off? And, when does it signal a red flag to you that there's a problem?
So bold works when it's thoughtful and intentional. And most importantly, that the relevant stakeholders truly understand the risk. You also have to make sure you understand the risk, because if it's really bold, but you're not going to get a lot out of it and it's risky, is it really what you want to do? The other is, if it's a red flag, is when it looks reactive or unstable.
Like you're jumping from place to place to place,
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you better have, when you ask, like, walk me through your resume, or when you ask questions about the moves that you've made, you better have an intentional answer for those moves.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, if you've done the right things, the other thing about this, and I may be a broken record on this one, but my deal is strap into the chair until you have the right opportunity staring you in the face, the one that feels good, that is the right environment. That don't just say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to leave and I'll find something else." Strap in, and because I think you make better decisions then, and you also have more options.
If there's an executive listening out there today, or many executives, shall we say, and they needed to do just one thing differently tomorrow to increase their chances of being called for that amazing transformational role, what would you tell them to do?
I think open up their parameters. Don't be so narrow. If you don't want to move, that's understandable, but that sometimes hurts your ability to move. Be open to new ideas. Like I said, maybe even taking a step back. And also just expand your parameters. Look at it from a standpoint of my next move. I don't, we have so many people like this house, oh, I want to be near the mountains, or I want to be near the coast. And I had a candidate that said, I want to move to Hawaii. And I said, well, you don't need me, you need a travel agent. And he kind of laughed. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I mean, why Hawaii? It's a great place and everything. And he goes, but I want this, 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 and this. Well, that was that opportunity. What he wanted, this, and this, was in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. So it was one of those things where he said, I really wasn't, I can go to Hawaii on my vacation. This is the opportunity I wanted to deal with. So keep those opportunities open, understand what you want, make sure it fits what you're looking for.
Is there something, Neill, that you can talk to that leads to a great leadership tenure where somebody's just a perfect placement, not just a successful placement that you've made?
Yeah, I think trust and consistency. And putting yourself in situations where success is probable, not just possible. And then trusting your gut when you're looking at a new opportunity. If your head is telling you it's a great opportunity, but you can't sleep,
it's a good sign, isn't it?
I personally am a huge believer in that your gut, your heart is telling you. Sometimes your head is overriding it, but your gut is telling you this just isn't right. Oh, for example, I'm calling you to follow up, and you're dodging my call. You don't even know why, right? You're just like, I don't want to talk to him right now about it.
There's a reason. Yep.
Exactly.
It's in your gut. Your body will always tell you if you're not sleeping, something's out of alignment. You have to actually listen to it, not ignore it just because the paycheck's high, or the job is in your backyard,
right.
or it's a
or
higher
whatever
title.
the reason. Whatever the reason, your gut's telling you.
Any final parting advice for those who are seeking the next opportunity?
I think, Marlo, people think the search is over when they get the job. It's not. Your next job search starts the day you start your new role. So you've built momentum, so don't lose it. It's very important. Maintain and grow those relationships. Keep with the people that helped you relocate, whether it be a search firm or somebody that gave you advice. Keep in contact with your coaches. Neill?
I'm going to go back to, your career is 40 or 50 years. Okay. In this day and time, I mean, it truly can be. And too many people treat it like it's a series of jobs, but it's really a long-term asset. So don't give your employer 100%.
Ooh.
Give your employer 90%. You take the other 10% and you invest it in yourself by building relationships, developing thought leadership, speaking, attending conferences, staying visible. That's your 10%. It's still going to help you do a better job. It's going to make you more visible. It's going to give praise to the organization. But don't give 100%. You give them 90, and you take 10 for you, or keep 10 for you.
That's brilliant. I love that. Where can companies hire you? Just want to be very clear out there to those who are listening. You are not headhunters, which everybody loves to use that term. You don't work for the employee. You actually work for companies. Where can companies find you if they want to engage your services? And if somebody's in healthcare and they want to maybe submit their resume to your portal so that maybe they can be found or link into you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so HealthSearchPartners.com. Like I said, HealthSearch, we're very easy. HealthSearchPartners.com on the web, or both Kurt and I are very active on LinkedIn. Neill Marshall, Kurt Mosley on LinkedIn. And yeah, if you're looking to add to your leadership team, or want an evaluation of your leadership team, we're happy to help. And if you're looking and you're at the executive level inside kind of the hospital healthcare space, always willing to have a conversation with you.
Awesome.
And I always love it, Marlo, when people comment on LinkedIn about the articles that I write, or they have a comment, or they don't agree with me. I love those conversations because it's a you never lose, you learn. That's what I always say. So, if they come back and say, can we talk further about this? And we establish those relationships and love that. So, and a lot of times, a lot of people that have come back and maybe had a critique about something we've written, do a co-article with us, which is great. So keep in touch with us. It's easy to do.
That goes right back to those relationships, right, Kurt? If you comment on something Kurt's written, he might look at you and be like, this person's interesting. I need to talk to them. So there you go. Or Neill. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you for definitely busting down some of those myths about search consultants and how it works behind the scenes, and also what to do in your first 90 days. And thanks again.
Great.
Thank you, Marlo. We enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us.
What I hope you take from this conversation is that executive opportunities rarely come out of nowhere. They are built over time through relationships and visibility. And I think that's such an important reminder because too many people really wait until they need a job to think about their network and their professional brand. At the senior leadership level, the work starts before you need it. Your career is not built in one move. It's built across years of decisions, relationships, visibility, and trust. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a leader who's thinking about what's next for them, or someone who needs to start playing the long game more intentionally. And as always, stay curious, stay growing, and stay unscripted. The journey is yours. Work Unscripted is produced and edited in partnership with the team at Palm Tree Podco and 21 Digby. The content for this week's episode was created by me, Marlo Lyons.